And we've been working really hard as a city, and I'm incredibly proud of both the residents and the businesses, but Salt Lake City Corporation team as well. And there's a lot to look forward to. We talked about a lot about air quality and the initiatives kind of from top at the climate, addressing the climate through carbon reduction and greenhouse gas emission reduction, talking about getting 100% net renewable energy coming into the city for every Salt Lake City customer by 2030, if not before. We also talked about having almost 100% of the city's renewable energy needs being met by this time next year, early next year. An 80 megawatt solar farm that we just broke ground on a few months ago will be up and running. All the way marching down sort of to your backyards. We're working on expanding public transit. We made a big reach late last year, by putting a rideshare program with UTA and a company called Vi, where you can get picked up. Sometimes it'll be a shared ride. And for only $2.50, you can basically get cheaper than an Uber or Lyft, but the same kind of connectivity to our public transit system or anywhere else in the service area. We're going to keep pushing the envelope on cleaning our air in every way we can, at every level that we possibly can as a city government. And one last thing was that on State of the City Day, we also announced with our partners the Free Fare February, which I think is the most grand experiment we've ever had as a state on transit ridership. We've never had a month of fareless transit. We've never had the ski bus and even Front Runner included in it. So I challenge people to not just take it one time, but try using transit to get to a number of different destinations this month. And it's the future really of what quality of life should mean for residents along the Wasatch Front.
What are the next steps we should be looking to as you work to complete your vision from that you outlined? We
also saw a reduction in crime over the course of 2021, which was a significant swing from where we started. It's actually a 32-point reduction in crime to get to a 6% overall reduction. And this was after a dramatic increase throughout 2020 and into early 21 in cities really across the country. You're going to continue, I hope, to see our numbers of crime decrease, call response times decrease, which they've been doing month over month for several months now. You're going to see Salt Lake City Police Department be fully restaffed by this summer. So in addition to that, you could look forward to participating, I hope, in the Commission on Racial Equity and Policing, which continues their work of evaluating potential reforms, community integration into the training of our police department, and budget proposals, which were reflected in the work that we did with the council in our last budget. A lot of progress happening. It's never going to be done. And we're up for the fight. We're up for the conversation of asking, how do we do it better? How do we make this city safer for both our officers and our residents, and that we need you as a part of that conversation in order to make these great strides forward.
Related to that, and related to a lot of what you talked about in your State of the City as well, was housing and sheltering those without homes. I'm wondering if you could touch on that and what we're going to see coming up on that is going to look like.
Last year alone, Salt Lake City invested in more affordable units than we ever have before. We saw 345 new affordable housing units come online with Salt Lake City financial participation. And there's more than 700 new affordable housing units in the pipeline right now that will be coming into Salt Lake City. That's in addition to a tremendous amount of growth, but we're going to keep figuring out ways not only to get affordability in where the market maybe wasn't contemplating it originally, but to expand that geographic equity so that we don't continue to focus affordable housing in only one part or in a few parts of the city. People should be able to live in whatever neighborhood they want to live in, but we've got to figure out ways to get that dynamic housing and affordable housing into more parts of our city. And I talked a lot in the State of the City about homelessness, the tremendous amount of compassion and investment that Salt Lakers have made and continue to make in addressing the acute needs of the individuals experiencing homelessness and the impacts, frankly, of that many unhoused people living on the streets in our city. There's really only about 5 cities in the state who are concentrated with the statewide homelessness crisis, and they range from Logan to St. George and a few of us in between. Only a couple of cities have guaranteed support from the state of Utah, and that's South Salt Lake and Midvale. They host homeless resource centers as we do, but they don't have to compete for funding every year to be able to ensure the quality of life around those homeless resource centers remains good. So this year in the legislative session, we're working shoulder to shoulder with these other cities to support South Salt Lake and Midvale continuing to receive funding, but to include the few rest of us who also have, tremendous shoulders to hold up the state's homelessness crisis. They need to have more ownership. And frankly, they need to have more financial responsibility for the impacts that cities are incurring on their own. But we're not going to stop leading with compassion. Just as we created the community commitment program that brings resources to people where they're at, instead of just expecting those on the street to come in and find their way to a COVID vaccine or getting a driver's license or the justice courts to resolve their warrants. All of these services, including housing and detox opportunities, shelter opportunities, are now coming out to people where they're at through the community commitment program. We even had judges at our justice courts invent the kayak court and go out on the Jordan River to help people who are living along the river resolve warrants. Those warrants are barriers that ultimately make it harder for people to access the services they need. We're going to keep being that creative.
For residents of Salt Lake City who watched your State of the City address or watched coverage about it like this, and they want to know more, they want to get more involved, where would you invite them to go to learn more, but also like what steps can they take to help the city on this journey?
But one-stop shop would be great to sign up for the mayor's office newsletter, follow us on social media, and tell us what you think. Tell us what you want or ideas that you see around the country that you think Salt Lake City should be considering. We're here to work with you. We want to listen and learn from you and help us achieve the great potential that I think we're on track to together as a city.